On today's Join Us in France, will your credit card work when you arrive in France? This is Join Us in France, episode 99. Hello, I'm Annie, and Join Us in France is a show about all things French. I love France. I was born and raised here, and I live in France, but I've also lived in the UK and the US for a couple of decades. So I have a unique perspective on my own country, and I want to help you understand France better. Today's show is going to be about credit cards and what difference, if any, do those new credit cards that they are issuing in the US make for you. So if you're interested in this topic, you may also like episode number 10 on store hours and credit cards in France. Now, listener Michael sent me an email to ask, will my credit card work in France? And it occurred to me that although I've mentioned credit cards in various episodes, notably in episode 10 that I just mentioned, and also episode 77, the Paris trip report with my friends Sherry and Craig, I haven't done a show yet all about the new types of credit cards that people are getting in North America and whether or not it changes anything for visitors. Should you get one of those? Doesn't matter, that type of question. As a preface to this, let me say that not having lived in the US for 10 years, I am shocked now when I visit the US and I can buy things by simply swiping my credit card, and very often they don't ask for a PIN or a signature or anything. And it used to be that you had to sign for every purchase, but they decided, let's make it, even easier for thieves. And for purchases under $50, they don't ask for anything, not even a signature. And, having swung all the way towards the ridiculous, now the pendulum is swinging back to the opposite extreme, and it's causing some stress and some cost and all of that. But honestly, I'd rather have too much credit card security than not enough because, if I dropped my credit card in the parking lot in an American store, someone could be making a lot of $50 purchases all day. Okay, yes, you say, but you'd surely notice that your credit card was missing. Well, I don't think so, because it's happened to me many times that I left my credit card in a pocket and I didn't realize where I had put it until next time I went to use it. And then I have to go thinking, okay, when's the last time I used it? What was I wearing? Blah, blah, blah. It's probably happened to you too. So what's the difference? If instead of putting it in a bad pocket, I had just dropped it on the ground, well, I wouldn't have noticed until next time I needed to use it. So, it's really gotten too lax. Now, credit cards have never worked like that in France because both our credit and debit cards have always required a PIN for any sort of withdrawal or payment. So, again, let's go back to the example of my dropping my card in the parking lot. And if it happens in France, well, nobody can use my card without knowing my PIN. And I like that feature because I need protection from my own, absent-mindedness sometimes. So, the US and Canada are moving in the right direction and implementing better security measures with the chip system. It's going to be a little painful for a while, but I think it's the right thing to do. But do you have to have a chip and PIN card or a chip and sign card when you come to France? Does it matter for your trip? That's exactly what I'll be explaining today. In the US and Canada, there is a difference between a credit card and a debit card. That's the traditional. That's how it's been for many years. American debit cards always have a 4-digit PIN number. And if your card has a 4-digit PIN number, it will always work in France. At least to withdraw money from an ATM. It'll probably work everywhere else as well. So, if your card, which does not have a chip, works with a 4-digit PIN number, it'll work everywhere. in the US, in Canada, in France, everywhere. Okay, but maybe you don't have a debit card. Maybe what you have is a credit card, a real credit card that may or may not come with a PIN number. The only way to find out is to call the bank that issued your credit card and ask them. If it's the type that can be assigned a PIN number, ask for it. They'll probably send it in the mail and it'll probably take a couple of weeks. But one thing is for sure. If you can use a card to get cash from an ATM in the US or Canada with a PIN number, it will also work at an ATM in France, whether or not it has a chip. So, do you really need the PIN and chip cards? Probably not. So long as it works in the US, it'll work in France. The thing is, that card you have with a PIN that works at an American ATM may have weekly ATM withdrawal limits. And if you're in France and your card is not accepted everywhere, you will be relying more on cash transactions. So you need to know about these ATM withdrawal limits. It may be a high limit and you've never hit it at home because you don't withdraw that much cash at home. You don't need the cash that much. You don't even know about it, but it probably has a limit. So call the bank that issued the card and ask them what the limit is, both when you're at home and when you're abroad. Those limits are usually not the same. So ask the question, ask them to raise it if it's too low. Now, so far we've talked about cash withdrawals from ATMs. And I do recommend that you withdraw some cash as soon as you can when you're in France. Probably hit the ATM at the airport. That way you can test it and you'll know that it works, and it will work. If it works in the US, it'll work in France. Now, let's talk about purchases. That's different. This is where there's a person helping you, there's a cashier. Maybe you're paying for souvenirs or paying for a meal or a hotel or whatever. Those are called point of sale transactions, and when engaging in that kind of transaction, they can handle all sorts of foreign cards. They can even handle American cards that do not have a chip. Chip readers, French chip readers, just like American readers, have a magnetic reader on the side. And sometimes, the cashiers in France are not used to running credit cards like that, so it might take a couple of tries. But the person taking the payment can make it work. I used to run into small town cashiers that didn't really know what to do with those, but that never happens anymore. So somehow the training must have gotten better, or they've had more exposure, or whatever. So don't worry about paying for something when there's a person at the register. Those are easy to do no matter what credit card you have. Okay, maybe you've asked for your first chip card in preparation for your trip to France. So let me tell you how those chip cards work. When you use a chip card, you insert it into a slot and you leave it and you wait for the machine to do its thing. And depending on your card and how the vendor is set up, it'll either spit up a receipt for you to sign or ask you for a PIN. But do you need the chip card in France? No, you don't. If you just come with a regular magnetic credit card or debit card, it'll probably work at any point of sale, any place where there's a cashier. The issue is when you hit a place that there isn't a cashier. So if you need to buy something from a machine, that's when you might run into a problem. There's one case where you may run into a problem with your American or Canadian credit card, and that's if it's not a chip and PIN, and that's paying for gas. That's actually the trickiest thing to do. Why? Because there are no attendants at 99% of French gas stations, and you can't pay for cash either. You can't pay for gas with cash either for some reason. If you need to buy train tickets, you'll find a person at the train station. Okay, it's possible that's a really tiny podunk train station that only has ticket vending machines, but those machines always take cash as well as cards. So if your card won't work, use your cash. Same with metro tickets. The machine will always take both cards and cash. What I do is I try the card. If it's not happy, I use the cash. Okay? Toll booths. They used to have attendants, but they don't anymore. But there is a trick. Listen up for just a second. It's very easy, but you have to remember this. If you pick a line that displays a green arrow logo over that lane, that's the lane where you can use any credit card and where you can use cash too. So remember, green arrow equals any method of payment. Now, there's something I have to tell you, and it's extremely counterintuitive, but oh so French. There are some lanes that display a credit card logo above the lane. But you do not want those as a visitor because I suppose they were trying to save a few seconds in processing time. So what they did is they reduced the number of credit cards that those lanes will take. So if you see a credit card logo over the lane and not a green arrow, it might have both. If it has both, you're fine. But if it has just the credit card logo, that's not where you want to be. You want to be under the green arrow. All right, repeat after me. I have to go under the green arrow. All right, it's very simple. You will also see other types of logos. You will see a big orange or yellow T. That's télépaiement or télépéage. It's for French. It's for French people. In America, when I rent a car, they always give me the option to pay a daily fee and have an easy pass that lets me pay for all my tolls at the end of the rental. There is no such option for people who rent cars in France. We do have this system called télépéage that people who reside in France can do, and we have one and we love it, but it's not open to rental car companies for now. So if you see people zooming through the lane that has the yellow or orange, it depends, T letter for télépéage or orange paint on the ground, that's what it is. But it will not work for your rental car no matter what you do. Now, if the lane you're at has both a letter T and a green arrow, that's fine. You can use it. Folks like me who use the télépéage, we have our own dedicated lanes, but we can also use one or the other ones. Sometimes people don't want to change lanes at the last second, so we can use any of the ones. But, of course, I know if I'm at a place with the green arrow, I might be behind somebody who's going to be putting coins in the machine, and it's going to take a while. But that's my problem, not yours. Take your time, read what it says on the reader and all of that, and you'll do fine. Now, before you get on the toll road, get some cash, okay? Coins work faster than bills because you don't have to find the right way to insert the bill. Have your coins ready. You never know. Sometimes the green arrow monster is in a bad mood or you won't take your card for some reason. There's always a call button. So if you run into any kind of trouble, they respond very quickly within a minute or at most. And for the French tip of the week at the end, I'll tell you how to say that this thing won't take your credit card in French. It might come in handy if you can remember it at the right time. All right, so the one place where I don't have a good solution for you is buying gas. I've never seen a gas pump where you could pay cash. So it's either pay with a card or pay at an attendant. There are very few gas stations left in France with attendants in cities. They're far and few between. I mean, I wouldn't count on finding one. If you're at a hotel or if you have a local friend, ask them. They might know of one, but it's not very reliable. So here's what I recommend. If you've rented a car in France, buy your gas on the freeways. Freeways always have an attendant. You will pay quite a bit more per liter, but they always have an attendant. So do you need a fancy chip and pin card to travel? No, you do not. So long as your card will get you cash out of ATMs in the US or Canada, it will also do the same in France. Okay? And it will also work in stores and restaurants and all of that. But if you don't have a chip and pin card, just be prepared to pay for certain things with cash. Tolls, tickets, that kind of place where it's a machine, you'll need cash for those places. So I recommend, maybe bring a couple of cards that work at an ATM just in case you lose one or get robbed or something. I always like to have a plan B and make good strategic use of your hotel safe. Just be assured that human vendors in France will be happy to take your magnetic strip cards. The machines will not. Probably the machines will not. Some of them do, though. Some machines are set up right, and they can take your old style American card. Try them. They're not going to keep your card, okay? They're not going to eat your card and keep it. I mean, if you try it 20 times, it probably eventually will be unhappy with you, but it's okay to try it once. You have to keep in mind there are lots of French people who don't have credit cards and they still need to buy metro tickets and train tickets, etc. So if you're at that sort of place and it doesn't look like the machine that's in front of you takes cash, look for one that does. There's always a machine somewhere around there that will take cash. You just need to find the right one, okay? So, recap, you don't need a chip and pin card, but if you have one, your transactions will be safer anywhere in the world, and you will not need to rely on so much cash when traveling abroad, anywhere, or in France in particular. What I'm saying today applies for most of Europe. So, I could have said Europe, but it's a French podcast, so I'm keeping it to France. In preparation for your trip, you should ask your bank about your weekly cash withdrawal limits. And if you have the chip card, ask them if it's a chip and pin or a chip and sign. Either one works. Don't worry about it. But it would be better if you knew. And definitely check on your cash withdrawal limits. That's important to know, and you might need to raise it. All right? Okay, everybody. I don't know if I told you, but this is going to be a short show. That's it for today. And thank you very much. Et au revoir. This is the French tip of the week. This is what you say if your card won't work. You say, ma carte ne marche pas, comment faire? It means, my card won't work, what to do? Ma carte ne marche pas, comment faire? And if you wish to find a gas station with an attendant, you say, est-ce qu'il y a une station-service avec une caissière près d'ici? Est-ce qu'il y a une station-service avec une caissière près d'ici? If you want to see those written down, go to joinusinfrance.com / and the number 99. If Join Us in France makes your life happier and your trip planning easier, let us know by joining the mailing list, subscribing to the podcast, reviewing the show on iTunes, sharing status updates on Facebook, or sending in a donation. Merci beaucoup.